Yeah.
It's a little different heat than El Paso.
A little bit,
And you
yeah.
went to Columbia, so you know.
Yes, although I was never here in the summers, so I'm getting to experience it now as a candidate. It's a little bit of a different heat. It actually reminds me of South Texas, where it's very humid and just stays warm. But you know what? We were reading stories about how bad it was in New York and the canceling festivals.
We should get him started in just a second.
Shut down the subway,
One more
and then it wasn't as bad as we thought it would be. So, thank you for being part of this.
It's our pleasure.
Yeah.
And then I have Lori Brenner's in-laws, Dave,
Hey, how are you?
Haley, Luke, and
Hi,
Ryan.
how are you? Hey, nice to meet you. Hi. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. Yeah. Braving the elements to come out.
They canceled the triathlon, you know.
I know.
We didn't have to come up.
So we got in today. We had to get up early. We were laid over in Chicago. There was bad weather. We couldn't get in last night. We got in. I didn't get a run this morning. So when we got to the hotel, I started to go outside to run. It was just a blast furnace outside. So in the gym, but
Well, it was over 110 in El Paso yesterday.
was it really? Wow. Yeah.
Dan sent us a picture of his Mars thermometer. It's at 111.
Oh my gosh. So not feels like 110, but literally 110.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
All right, well, we're going to go get started if
It's hot
everybody
all
wants to
over.
come join us.
You're welcome to join us outside, or you're welcome to stay in the air conditioning if that feels better.
right.
Yeah. Thank you all for being here.
We're going to follow Melissa.
Whoever needs advice in North Korea or Iran, call this guy.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate the offer. Yeah.
It's wonderful for you to be here.
Thank you
very
for
much.
having us out.
Really great.
Really appreciate it.
Follow you on Facebook all the time.
Oh, good.
It's my son Dylan.
Hey,
nice
Dylan,
to meet you.
Beto.
18. Thank you for coming.
Oh, right on.
Yeah,
This
18.
is your election.
Yeah.
No
First
pressure.
time.
Like
First
it's
time.
all on. It's all on you. Thanks for coming out to this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course.
All right, here we go.
Thank you. Yeah.
Straight back
get
this
started.
way.
You come back to New York when
Yep.
it's cooler.
I will. We'll come back in the winter too. Yeah. Thanks for having us out.
I got the music for you.
Oh, right on. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Where's the view at? The view in New York City?
The view is in New York City, and so is Seth Meyers. So we're doing both in New York City.
Good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Let's come
Yeah.
down.
So watch. Yeah, it's tomorrow or day after tomorrow.
Mars the Well
Okay.
in Brooklyn.
Right on. Thanks.
All right, here we go.
Hi, Beto O'Rourke. Nice to meet you. Oh, right on.
I donated to your campaign for Senate.
To prove it, right?
Yeah. Could you take a picture?
Sure, absolutely.
Awesome.
Thank you all so much. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Stay cool.
Here we go.
Hi there, Beto.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Buy a drink?
Yes. Yeah. I'll if there's a good IPA, I'll take that. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for having us out. Hey. How are you? Thanks for having us out.
Good afternoon. Welcome. Thank you guys so much for coming. My name is Melissa Frank. I'm a proud volunteer for the Beto for America campaign. So I, like probably so many of you sitting here in the shadows of our Statue of Liberty, are immigrants. I'm as well. So during World War II, my grandma and my grandpa were able to escape Germany. They left Germany by way of the Dominican Republic, ended up here, came through Ellis Island, and settled on the Lower East Side. So that is an American story. And why I volunteer is because of that story. And why I started volunteering for the Senate campaign is because I too lived in Texas, 10 years in Texas, and there wasn't somebody there representing my values. And so I decided to volunteer for Beto, and still here for the presidential campaign. Sorry, a little nervous, guys.
You're good.
So one of the reasons I decided to stay on for the presidential campaign is because the policies that Beto is building are built on real American values. Things like finding strength in our diversity, taking care of the most vulnerable amongst us, and providing equal opportunity for all of us. The ability to bring people together on a hot Texas-like day is incredible. And we are here as supporters to help uplift those values. And I could not be more proud to be on this team. So, without further ado, welcome here our next president.
Thank you all so much for being here. I think it says something about the campaign. And it certainly says something about you that on one of the hottest days in New York City, we find ourselves outside, moving our bodies and making noise and perspiring a little bit, but also cooling down with a nice IPA, which I highly recommend. And just enjoying one another's company and participating in the greatest democracy in the history of the world at a moment that it faces the greatest challenges that it has ever known. And the way that we meet those challenges is by coming together, even on a really hot day like this one. Defying the conditions, defying the current circumstances, defying the intolerance and the inhumanity of this moment with our own humanity and our ability to come together. And I love it, and I'm so grateful to be a part of it. My wife, Amy, I just talked to, is on her way to New York, sends her regrets that she couldn't be here right now at this moment, but she had to put all 3 of our kids on a bus for summer camp. Big moment in the O'Rourke household. Ulysses, who's 12 years old, Molly, who just turned 11, both excited to go. Henry, who's 8 years old, not so much. A lot of convincing and cajoling and letting him in on what was inside the care package that he would be taking with him, promising him there was lots of sugar tonight, just please make it to camp. But I'm confident Henry's this really smart, funny, engaging, kind kid. He's going to make friends. Everything's going to be okay, but we cannot help but worry, right? We're parents, just like so many of you are parents right now, bravely bringing your kids out on this hot day as well. A few weeks ago, we took Henry and Molly and Ulysses to a place that you may have read about. Some of you who are from Texas may have even been to. It's a little community called Clint, and it's just outside of El Paso. And someone was just telling me that yesterday the thermometer read 110 degrees in the Chihuahuan Desert where we live, where Clint is, and where at this point hundreds of children have been locked up in the Border Patrol station there. Some of them Henry's age, some of them a little bit younger, the age of these smaller kids who are here right now, in some cases separated from their parents after having survived a 2,000-mile journey the length of Mexico. Much of that on foot, some of it atop, not inside, of a train that they call the Beast or La Bestia, to come here to seek shelter and safety and refuge and asylum in a country, as Melissa said, of immigrants and asylum seekers and refugees. But instead of finding some kind of relief, they found their worst nightmare. In some cases, forcibly torn from the arms of their parents, the very person who risked their lives to bring them here. And in that Border Patrol station, they are literally sleeping on a concrete floor under a tinfoil blanket with other kids who are perfect strangers to them. Kind of a reminder to Henry and to all of us that there are some kids who are in really desperate straits right now. In fact, 6 children have lost their lives in U.S. custody just over the last 12 months in these very same kind of facilities. So we took Henry and Ulysses and Molly, and we met with hundreds of our fellow El Pasans who came out under the broiling heat, under a burning sun, to make sure that those kids inside knew that we knew that we were in there, that they were in there, and that we would not stop until they got out, until they rejoined their families, until this country lived up to its promise and its potential. This, the wealthiest, the most powerful country on the face of the planet, certainly has the capacity. It's just a question whether we have the political will to do the right thing at this defining moment of truth. Are you with me on this? I'm confident in this country. I believe in this country. I know that we will do the right thing. Sometimes we just have to know what is being done in our name. And that's why we went out to Clinton. We wanted to bear witness. We wanted to testify back to our fellow Americans. Make sure everyone has a chance so that it's on their conscience as well. And I'll tell you what, I think this is working. Many of you here in New York participated in an event called Lights for Liberty a little more than a week ago. Were you out at that? And it was all over the country. People standing up to be counted, standing against this inhumanity, the largest incarceration of children who have committed no crime whatsoever in the history of the United States, with the exception of the internment and imprisonment of Japanese Americans in the 1940s. People are learning about it. We're pushing this on to the national consciousness, forcing the conscience of this country. And here you are, 2,000 miles away from El Paso. But you see yourselves in those parents, you see your kids in those kids who are imprisoned, and you're going to stand up for them. That's this country at its best. My friend Stephanie, who's sitting here on the right side of the patio, we first met her when she came in to my congressional office. A reminder that, like her son, fewer than 1% of our fellow Americans have served in the armed forces since 9/11. And yet on their backs, we are bearing the foreign policy of the United States. 18 years at war in Afghanistan, at war in Iraq, in Somalia, in Yemen, in Libya, in Syria as well. And so often, because there are so few of them, they are overlooked or forgotten or not taken care of, having a hard time getting into the VA and treating their post-traumatic stress disorder. But by going into every single congressional office, showing up at meetings like these, holding people in positions of power and public trust accountable, Stephanie's going to make sure that we deliver for every woman and every man who has borne the battle. You're forcing that onto the national consciousness. And then one last story, because I want you to know when you make a contribution or when you sign up to Phone Bank and you reach out to your fellow Americans, I want to tell you how we're making those resources work, making the most out of what you're willing to contribute. This weekend, I was knocking on doors in Council Bluffs, Iowa. Going out with one of these great field organizers who your 5 or 10 or 15 bucks funds his salary so that he can make sure to go out and work. Thank you for doing that. And listen, it was perhaps not the best idea. It was really hot like it is here today. It was a Friday, and it was during the workday, so a lot of people were not home. I encountered some teachers who answered the door, one of whom said, you know what, I haven't even started to pay attention. There's so many people in the race, there's so much going on. I've got so much on my plate. There's 200 days till the caucus starts, but since you've shown up, let's have a conversation. And we talked about public education. We talked about replacing Betsy DeVos with a school. Making sure that teachers are paid a living wage, that they're shown respect, that we invest in a world-class system of public education. A few doors down, a gentleman answered the door, and we were talking for a little bit, and he said, you know, I gotta admit to you, I don't live here. This is a friend's house. I'm living in a trailer down at the end of this street. I just moved here from Omaha, Nebraska, and I'll tell you what, he was working a job as a maintenance worker at a 4-story hotel. He was the only maintenance worker at that 4-story hotel, and in part as a consequence of that, he never got time off. He could never spare it, even when he was not feeling well. This blizzard hits Omaha in late February, and he's really feeling bad, asks for time off. They won't give it to him. He starts to cough up blood. He knows something is wrong, and he says, you know what? The hell with it. I'm just leaving it. If you won't give me time off, I'm quitting the job. His diagnosis is pancreatic cancer. Incredibly sick, no longer able to hold that job or pay for the apartment, puts all his stuff in the trailer, and goes and finds his friends in Council Bluffs. And as he's talking to me, he begins to cry. And not out of physical pain or physical suffering, but tears of frustration, asking how in the world could this happen? I played by the rules. I had a good job making $16.50 an hour. I was on time on my rent every single month. I made works of art in my spare time. Why is this happening to me? in this country at this moment. He said, look, I'm the kind of guy, I'm old school, he's about 60 years old. Whatever my differences are with a given person who's president, once they hold that office, we support them. But he said, this guy is taking us back to the 1950s. He wants to spend $30 billion on a wall to keep those kids out instead of investing in education or healthcare or everyone's ability to participate in the economy. How do we make this country work for me? And so our ability to see ourselves in him is fundamental to our chances to pass universal, guaranteed, high-quality healthcare, knowing that but for the grace of God, we could be in his exact same position. And if you are lucky enough to have insurance today as a matter of fortune or fate or circumstances, we've got to change that so that it is a basic human right upon which every single American So whether it's comprehensive immigration reform, including never again incarcerating another child or breaking up another family, or guaranteed high-quality universal health care, or a world-class public education system, or confronting climate change before it is too late. We cannot take half steps or half measures. Thank you so much. And we cannot do this with only half of the country. Not one party, not one part of the country. It's got to be every single one of us doing every single thing that we can, because this is our defining moment of truth. And I started my talk with Henry, our 8-year-old, who by now has arrived at camp. It is Henry's judgment that I fear. Down the road, he'll be looking back on the people of 2019 and 2020. He will know that all of this was taking place, not just the challenges that I described, but that impromptu Nuremberg rally that took place in North Carolina, where they were demanding that an African-American Muslim member of Congress go back to her country. The press as the enemy of the people, Klansmen as very fine people. We are going to be defined one way or another by how we meet this moment. And it can be walls and cages and fear and racism, or it can be our ambitions and our aspirations and our willingness to listen to and bring every single American into the solution. That's what we're doing in this campaign, and that's how I want to serve you as the next president of the United States. Cynthia is telling me that there is a cool spot on this patio right over there. And so if anybody would like to take a picture, I would love to personally thank you and shake your hand. But if I don't get a chance to tell you in person, let me just tell the group, the only reason that I'm here is you gave me the chance to do this. Know that I'm grateful for it, and we will make the most of what you're contributing. Gracias, everybody. Thanks very much.